welcome to the Fat Sam podcast. And today I am joined by the host of Mind Your Head podcast. Now, I don't know a great deal about it. I just know it's important. So we've got the legend that is Robert Muldoon from Mind Your Head podcast. Hello, mate.
Hello, how are we?
Very well, mate. Well, I say very well. I'm feeling the strain of work. First time back after 3 months off. And it's long days, 10-hour days, hour there, hour back. And yeah, but on the flip side of that, where I've had a break from work, I'm loving it.
Yeah. Getting back into the routine and making you realise what you missed, everything about it, the crack and everything like that.
Yeah, and it's doing the work that I really like as well. So the lot of containment, but it's like old school containment. Something electricians do is they do all the first fix, stinging all the containment, and it's you have to fabricate all the bends and all the dips and peaks and all this sort of stuff by yourself. And man, it's been many years since I've had to do that. So it's nice relearning your old craft, if you like.
Yeah, so is it all metal conduit that you're using?
No, so not really metal conduit. It's more tray trunking,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So yeah, it's really good, man. But enough about me. Tonight I have invited you on to the Fat Sam podcast to talk a little bit about what you're doing with your podcast. It's best name in the game, Mind Your Head Podcast, Myhp.
Thank you. Yeah.
I love it. Tell us a little bit about. I'll tell you what. Tell us your background, and where it all started.
I've been in the construction industry now for 20 years as a bricklayer, and I've done many roles within that industry. So obviously I started off as an apprentice bricklayer back in 2000. In fact, I started with a small local builder just as a labourer, and I thought, actually, this is working for me. School didn't work for me, but this is working for me. And I got on with those for maybe about a year, and then from that I thought, right, I want to progress myself a bit. And I actually had a conversation with my granddad, who was saying his brother or his friend back in Ireland was paying a bricklayer a £5 a block at the time. This is sort of 2001. And I thought, you know what, I could do that. I want a bit of that. So I managed to get an apprenticeship with a company called McCrory Brickwork.
Hold on a minute. How old are you?
I am 36. So
you late apprenticeship then?
I was 17, 18.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. I thought I heard. Did you say 2000s? Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I read a post the other day, and someone was like, "Does anyone else feel like 1990s were 20 years ago?" Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So no, my bad. Carry on, my man.
And then I got in with those, and I worked with them from about 2001 up to 2005. And from 2005 up to 2012, I worked for myself, doing everything from small bits of repointing, frost damage brick, all the way up to doing big commercial. Well, I say big commercial stuff. I do extensions, just the brick and block work on a couple of schools, a good few new builds that I'd done and things like that. And then with 2012, or the recession from 2008 upwards, I managed to survive to 2012, but I was just sinking everywhere. Companies going bango with me money. Companies that go bango with me money, and then they'll ring me up. They'll have set up in a different name and say, "Oh, do you want to come and price for this work?" I was like, "Well, if you pay me for that money that I did for all that other work I've done, I might consider pricing for you." And then ultimately, I got wound up by a builder's merchant because I'd built some houses up in North Manchester, and the customer just didn't pay on time, and it was too late. And then when the money was coming in, it was in one hand out the other, and I just got folded up basically. So I then went back to working for McCrory Brickwork at the end of 2012, beginning of 2013 sort of time, and I've pretty much been there ever since. And I've worked my way up through the roles of being. I went back as a working supervisor, and I went back as I got promotion as a manager. Now my official title is project manager, but I just see myself as a bricklayer, really.
So you obviously been in the game a while. What has got so your podcast is all about mental health, correct?
Yes.
So let's unpack that for a bit. Now,
Okay.
I'm a big advocate of mental health issues. I suffer terribly from mental health, like honestly, big time. A lot of it's due to historic drug abuse, but actually, I've always had it. If I look back at my childhood, um, certainly from about the age of 12, 13, I was just very, very insular, very, I had quite a traumatic childhood. I say traumatic, quite a angry household.
Yeah.
So I think it sort of played on into my adolescence, and then, it affects you. It does. It has a knock-on
Absolutely. Yeah.
effect on it. So for me, it's a big thing. It's a big part of what Fat Sam podcast is about. Unpacking mentality, talking, getting inspired, and trying to cover topics that, mean a little bit something more than just entertainment. I throw some of the entertainment in there as well, but it's all about reaching out to other trades, finding inspirational people, having a chat with them, really. So tell me more about what you do and what your podcast is aimed at.
So the podcast, the Myhp podcast, is aimed at ultimately the guys like me and you, the guys on the tools, on the coal face in the industry. Because, as you know, when you work on big sites, there's posters everywhere and there's information everywhere about health and safety and things like that, and you can it can get lost in the mass volume of it all, and there is starting to come to the forefront of everybody's mind about mental health. And I thought about changing the approach of the way that I deal with my lads with it, because I wanted it to feel as if it was coming from somebody on the same level as them, and it wasn't coming from a boardroom and a load of suits had sat around the table and thought, right, this is how we're going to make our lads do mental health, which we all know it doesn't work.
I do find a lot of that stuff that's posted around sites, because I do a lot of commercial work. I see a lot of them signs and I just think, you know what? It's so disingenuous. You don't care.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
don't care. If you went in there and saying, I feel like I'm going to have a breakdown, they'd get you out the door quicker than they would help you. You know, that sort of thing. It's very disingenuous. So your podcast is trying to pick up that slack, I take it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's trying to bridge that gap between guys that are out on site every day, and I guess the guys, maybe not so much the guys in the office, but making that link between the two groups, and showing that actually we do care about, and we do. Certainly, the company that I work for give me the freedom to go off and do this. Paul, my MD, I went to him and said, "Look, I've got this idea. I want to do this." He's gone, yeah, run with it. If you can make this work, absolutely, we'll back you all the way. And he's made it quite clear that it's not a PR stunt from our company. We're doing it because we genuinely care about the guys that work for us. And I've done 5. Well, the 5th episode is live now. And we've been down to London, done some work with Network Rail. I'm doing work with Mind Manchester. I'm doing work with Papyrus. So all these great charities, mental health charities, are reaching out to us and saying, yeah, great, we'd love to work with you. We like what you're doing. And I've got to do some work with other huge, the likes of Waits Construction are getting involved, Lend-Lease Construction are getting involved, and they're all buying into it and giving us a platform to go and deliver this podcast information and training that I've had to the guys on site, and whether it is the guys that work for us or whether the other subcontractors that we're working with, and help spread the message that ultimately we're all on the same journey and we all have problems in our own life. And if we can talk to each other and start that conversation and make it easier for people to open up, then it's a great thing. And that's not to say that I want to come on and be, look at me, I'm Rob the mental health guy. Absolutely not. I'm just the same as all the other guys on site, and I do have bad days like we all do, but it's important to realize that time will pass and you can get through it with the help of friends.
See, I have a bit of a thing with the way mental health is sometimes banded about. It's like
Yep.
used as a crutch for people having a down day.
Yep.
Now, or having the ump, or woke up at a bed the wrong side. When someone uses that as mental health, I don't know. It doesn't rub me up. I just think, are you watering it down a little bit with that?
Mm,
And for me, I mean, I've got stories that I can tell you about mental health that, you know, that my personal experience, and I don't own the rights to mental health. It's just something I struggle with every day, man. Like, honestly,
yeah.
I've had a really good week this week, but previous I've been a miserable bastard at home,
Yeah.
and it's just because I was in that funk, and sometimes it can take me a good few days to come out of it. What's your experience of mental health?
So for me, it's my lowest point was sort of 2018 time. And I think ultimately the trigger for me was the kids. So Seb, my eldest boy, came along in 2016. I've been with Louise, my wife, since we were 18 years old. So we were together sort of 12, 13 years, got married, kids came along. And life changes, as you know, when kids come along.
Big
And
time.
I struggled with it. I'll be honest with you, I struggled with it. And because I wasn't speaking to people and talking to my own wife what was going on, I was just burying myself into work. I'd work all the hours I could. I'd take jobs on that were 150 miles away from home and travel it every single day just so I was out of the house longer. And then it
What
got
was
worse. And
what was the problem there? Because I feel there's quite a few problems that new dads can have.
mm,
One of them is not bonding. Another one can be
yeah,
taking playing second fiddle to the baby. A lot of guys struggle with these things. What was your struggle?
I think the first of all was the not bonding with Seb. I didn't. He could be sat in his bed or his cot or wherever, crying his eyes out, and I'd feel absolutely nothing. I wouldn't feel sad. I wouldn't feel angry. I just wouldn't feel anything. I just look at him and think, I don't feel anything for you. And I think you're right in the sense that I think I did play second fiddle to the kids. That Louise has obviously got higher priority, or they're higher up the priority list at the minute because they depend on her for food because she was breastfeeding, and I was just sat at the wayside and I guess not getting the attention that I was used to. And that sounds a very selfish thing, but it's what I struggled with.
It's a lot of guys. I've met more than one guy that talks about this, playing a second fiddle. One of the funny stories is it took me. It's not a funny story, but it's one of my stories. Is it took me about probably 12 months to fully bond with my daughter, who I've just had. It wasn't that I didn't. It wasn't quite on your level. It was more like didn't really accept that she was here and didn't really take it on board 100%. Wasn't taking my responsibilities seriously or anything like that. And I found that to be quite eye opening because we moved down to the coast. I tell this
Mm-hmm.
every bloody podcast. And since we've been down here, it's been a completely different thing. Um, and there's one of my solutions to the way I was feeling. I was very down. Obviously, Harper was born. I wasn't bonding. And the transition from having two wages to one wage and all that sort of stuff, the pressure was on. And moving down here was like I'd put on a lot of weight as well. And now we'd moved, I'd sort of moved down to the coast to have a more of an outdoors life. And
Yep.
it really, really helped. Like we go for walks day in, day out on the beach. We've been all round and stuff like that. It's really helped me bond. And this is what certainly for me, Fat Sam podcast is about, is talking about, yeah, there's problems, Well, what do you do to fix them? Because a
Yeah.
lot of the time, mental health can really only be turned around by you taking the first step.
Yeah, and you want in that help and the recognition that you've got a problem, and I want to change the way I was, and that's the point I was at. And because Louise, well, she left me because I was pushing everything, I was doing everything I could because I didn't know how to handle that, what you just spoke about there, and I was just destroying everything around myself. And I remember being sat in, we were doing some work on a big retail park up here, and it was, for us, it was only a pretty small project, and I only had about 6 lads to look after. And they'd come in my office, and I'd be like, I can't figure out what you need me to do, because my head was just that foggy and not functioning right. I couldn't figure out the simplest of tasks, and I was just not working properly. So my home life was a mess, my work life was a mess, and I didn't know where to turn. And it got to the point where when Louise left me, I went back to mum and dad's, that was like that moment of me waking up and thinking, right, I need to change. I need to reach out. I need to say I need a bit of help, and how can I change this? And we had to work together. And since then, luckily, it's been great. It's been absolutely great. And in a way, I'm a big believer in things happen for a reason, good and bad. And if that hadn't happened, I don't know where we would have ended up. But it turned things around for me, and it's made me totally changed my attitude towards a lot of things, including mental health. And it's leading me down a path now of doing the likes of the podcast, and I've gone on and done a lot of training at work, and now I can go and deliver training to other guys on site as well.
So, what happened between you and your missus?
So we were away. It was January time, and we went away for a weekend. Just there was me, Seb, Louise, and then her brother and his partner, Emma, and we were away in Wales somewhere. And Seb wouldn't eat his tea. I think it was pizza, and I couldn't cope with it. I absolutely lost my head, and I was shouting at him. I totally blew it out of proportion, and I just couldn't. I couldn't comprehend and deal with the situation that was in front of me. The simplest of things, just a toddler not eating the tea. And I went upstairs, and I didn't come down for 2 days. And then I hadn't booked any. I knew we were going away that weekend, and I never bothered booking the Monday off to have like a long weekend. I went to work on the Monday, so I drove from. I was working in Liverpool at the time, so I drove from North Wales to Liverpool, and I got to work, and Louise messaged me saying, I'm leaving you because I can't cope with your mood swings. I can't cope with your erratic behaviour. I can't cope with you being out the house all the time and not helping with the kids and with the housework and with everything else. And she just couldn't stand being around me because I was a horrible person to be around, I guess. I was just angry all the time.
And what was feeding into this? Was it just those your feelings fueling this mental health issue, or was there drink and drugs involved as well?
No, I've never taken any drugs in my life. There's no drugs involved, but I was drinking more. Definitely was drinking more. I'd come home and usually I'd probably have a couple of pints on a Friday night after work on the way home, and then that'd do me then. But I was drinking every single night, 3-4 cans a night, and we were just sat on the settee either end. Well, a lot of the time, because I wasn't helping with the kids, we weren't getting any time together.
No.
And I saw it as a chore when I did have to help with the kids. I used to think, I've been out working all day and now I've got to come home and it's starting again. And it was tough for me to do it. And that somebody might be listening to this and thinking, no, it's not that tough. But for me, it was. I struggled with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's different strokes for different folks, isn't it? But like, honestly, I can relate a lot to that because even now, like after the last couple of days, like I just want to sit there and watch TV. But I know in my heart it's not acceptable, so I have to read the books and dance about and play games and stuff. But really, more than anything in the world, I just want to say, shut up and put
Yeah, yeah,
TV on, and that's all I want to do.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, like, but when I'm in a good place, I'm finding overcoming that the desire to sit there and be miserable easier.
yeah.
Um, so what was one of the things you did to get well?
Accept that I do need that help and let my guard down and don't try and be the tough guy. I just try and power through it. And I took advice and I spoke to a lot of lads at work, and they all had the same conversation, just like we're having. You say, I struggled with that, and
Yeah,
I did X, Y, and Z, and I have to step out the room sometimes, breathe, count to 10 or whatever they might do, and go back in and start again. Like just before we came on doing this, I've been helping my mate today at his garage. I blocked up a doorway for him, and I came in, had my tea, and Ben, the middle child, was just being an absolute pain in the ass. And he wouldn't sit at the table. He would standing up and running out around with the dogs and whatever. And if that had happened a couple of years ago, I would not have been able to handle it. I would have ended up screaming and shouting at him. But I didn't. I took him up. I ended up taking him to bed because he was just being a naughty kid. He's
yeah,
tired,
yeah,
and I put him to bed at about 6:30. And within 5 minutes of me putting him down to bed, he was fast asleep. He was just tired.
yeah.
Whereas I wouldn't have been able to handle that situation a couple of years ago. I would have just blown my head and probably ended up going outside or not coming back in for an hour or whatever.
Yeah, it's a funny thing, and I think it's a universal story. Like you're at work, you come home, kids are messing about, and really, you almost see it as like, why can't you just give me a break? And that
Mm,
can be quite a bad mentality to start getting into. Is starting to think the world revolves around you. Like you start to feel like you're the center of the universe, and why is that happening to me? And it's like one of the things that always happens to me is my printer don't work. And
yeah,
I'll be shouting at my printer, why won't you work? And then I'll be picking it up, go, please work. Do you know what I mean? And it's
yeah,
like the printer's doing it to me. Like the printer's got
yeah,
it
yeah,
out for me. I'm talking to an inanimate object with not like, and it's the same sort of thing. You start becoming the center of the problem rather than
yeah.
being on the peripheries of it. Now, one of the things I found, so I dealt with my mental health a little bit different.
Okay.
Um, I have quite a strong sense of self responsibility in terms of dealing with my mental health, and it's not like stiff upper lip type of responsibility. It's like, okay, I'm in that place again, right? What do I need to do? What are my steps to get out of that? And I
Mm,
and I recognize it quite early on now, years of practice. Um, Often, the first thing I need to do immediately is change my diet. Secondly, do more exercise. And three, just take yourself out of the center. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Start
yeah, yeah,
reflecting. And if you can, like, exercise is quite simply the most important thing for me in terms of getting out of myself. I mean, if you one of the things a famous podcaster, I don't know if you listen to him, Joe Rogan, says is like, if you train really hard in the morning once a day for an hour, like go real fully at it, the rest of your day will be a breeze. And I used to take that on board. So if I'm really, really bad, I will go and train in the morning or something, or do something very strenuous to sort of work it out. And now the latest thing I've been doing is the cold shower therapy. Have
yeah.
you tried that?
No, I've not tried the cold shower therapy, but I've been watching your videos where you've been going out at early doors in the morning, going for these walks, and thinking that's good. You're getting up and getting out, and it's
It wasn't
setting
good.
you up for the day.
It wasn't good because it, like, for 28 days straight, no lay-ins was not good. And it was really, really hard. About about 16 days in
Mm,
was hard. And then it snowed all the way through, and it was what the idea of the challenge was to break that cycle. So if you're in a funk And if you're
Yeah.
feeling in a funk, the things that we're going to do are easy. They're just really hard to do over a long period of time
Yeah.
consistently. So I was fasting, intermittent fasting. Um, that was really, really good. That's something I've relaxed this week. Okay, I've relaxed, but
Yeah.
next week I'll be back fasting again. I definitely won't be getting up to walk down the road at 5 o'clock in the morning. Um, but the cold showers, they've been a massive part of really changing the way the way I set myself up. Like before any podcast I do now, I will have a shower, proper normal shower, do the hair, all the works, and then I will turn that shower right round to cold, and then firm it for as long as I can until my breathing is normal in ice cold water. And then you come out of there and you just don't need coffee, you don't need anything. You are buzzing, like your skin's tingling, you feel fantastic. It's almost like, I don't know, like it supercharges me a bit. It's not the same for everyone. A friend of mine, he can't stand them. He blew them out very early on, but I love it. And if I feel down, if I feel like I'm getting in a funk, I will just go and have a shower and then a cold shower, and just breaks that, kind of lets you know where you are in the world, you know?
Yeah, and it's good. It's really, really good and important that you can recognize these signs now. So you recognize that your mood's changing and your attitude towards things is changing, and you know how you think, right, shit, I'm slipping here. What I need to do to correct this and stop me slipping back into that bad space that I was into is go and have your cold shower, go do a bit of exercise, and that's really, really important. That's good work, that Sam. Well done.
How do you find your diet impinges on your mood at all?
I don't think food really affects me that much. I'm I don't particularly eat something. Say if I have a Chinese, I always feel crappy after eating Chinese food. Well, that's probably because it's full of MSG stuff. But um, other than that, no, I eat pretty well because we don't tend to eat that much garbagey food because of the kids. We try and keep them with decent stuff.
For
I have
me,
takeaways like everybody does, but
if I start slipping into um, unhealthy habits with my eating,
mm,
my brain starts slipping into unhealthy mode, and then
yeah,
my life starts slipping into unhealthy mode. And this was the biggest problem with lockdown. This is one of the reasons I done the podcast, was because of lockdown. In the first lockdown, I thought I was really handling it well. Thought, yeah, I'm knocking it out of the park. But actually, what had happened was, I'm a historic drug user, and
okay,
I am recovered now. But during the first lockdown, I started drinking. You know, you're sitting there all day. We didn't really go out. Like, you go out for the hour's walk, but it wasn't really anything. And it was a serious lockdown, wasn't it? And it's like the first
mm,
proper lockdown was the only real lockdown. And
yeah,
come, I don't know, 11 o'clock at night, you ain't done nothing all day. You're not really tired. You've probably had a nap. So I'd have like a couple of shots
yeah,
of like whiskey or rum or something, couple of glasses, and get that nice little buzz going and go to sleep. But before long, it turned into a bottle a night.
yeah,
And then that bad habit turned into eating bad. Should we get a Chinese, babe? Should we get a curry, babe? And all that sort of stuff. And then I started getting fatter, and I started drinking more, and all these bad habits started popping up. And before I knew it, I'd slipped, and I had to. Then it was a tough time. And then now we're on the other side. We're still going through all these lockdowns. They've had a tremendous toll on me, um, for mental health reasons. And even my little daughter, she she's not really had the opportunity to mix with other kids. All she's had is us and
yeah.
the dog. And she was licking the pillow the other day after the dog had licked the pillow, and I was like,
Yeah.
what is going on here? So it's such a pertinent thing to be talking about mental health now, and all these little problems that people are facing. What sort of feedback have you had from people, and what sort of stories have you got to tell?
I've had a lot of feedback of people. I still get the odd guy at work that'll turn around and say, "What are you on about with all this mental health bollocks? I'm not interested in it." But at the same time, that those people will come back to me when they see I'm not trying to push it in the face and not trying to make everybody a snowflake, and I'm not trying to make everybody feel that they have to talk all the time. That they will come back and say, "All right, I understand what you're saying. I get that." And then I've had some real, uh, real stories of people that have blown me away, and I think, "Wow, how are you even still here? How have you survived that? You've got more strength than you realise to go through that particular period of your life, and you've come out the other side of it, and you come out of it with a positive attitude. Hats off to you. It's absolutely amazing." And then we've got stories of people that are living every day with the mental health problem, but they're surviving, and they're, like you said before, knowing the triggers and knowing how to cope with it and things like that. And it's a huge learning curve for me.
It's one of the most important things to sort of realise is it's not black and white.
No,
It
it's
is a
not.
spectrum.
And yeah,
Spectrum. I'm, as always, Mr. Extreme, have to be at quite on the wrong side of the spectrum, if you like. But it's important to sort of. I do think it's important to have these conversations. I really do. But I think it's also as important to talk about, get people talking about their wins. So people
yeah,
who
yeah,
suffered the mental health, been down, and how they turned it around and how they're thriving today. Now, one of the things I need to ask you, obviously, you're back with your missus now,
yeah,
um, which is fantastic. You turned it around. That is a
yeah,
massive win, and that should go out to a lot of people who perhaps don't recognise it's mental health that's causing them issues and have lost quite a lot.
yeah.
It's easily to turn that around and become the person that, say, your missus who left you fell in love with. I've had to do the same, and it's a really nice, powerful story to share with people to allow them to take some strength from your win.
Thank you. Yeah, it absolutely is. I could have gone, you know what? Screw this. I don't want that life. I'm just going to carry on destroying it, or just carry on down the road that I was going down. But it gave me the shock and the reset that I needed to say, actually, I don't want to lose all this, and I don't want to throw away all those years that we've had together. And now this is just a different journey, or a different path that we're on now together. We're learning to cope with it together.
How do you maintain your wellness, if you like?
I do a lot of. I think it's important to take time out for yourself, and I have to switch off from work a lot. I can't sit and watch TV. I'm really, really bad for. I'll be sat watching TV and I'll be thinking, "Oh, something needs doing over there," or "Oh, I need to get these tools ready for work tomorrow," or "Oh, I could just go and send this email and then it saves me doing a job tomorrow." I make a conscious decision of stepping away and taking time out for the things that are important to me, which is the kids and the wife and the dogs and things like that, and taking that time out for myself, for others, and doing things I enjoy as well. It doesn't all have to be about work.
It's really interesting, and there is a quote from Denzel Washington. Trying to find it now, and it's really pertinent to what we're talking about, and I can't really find it now. It's basically, to be the best I can be, I need to take time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because like he says, I love being around people, I love doing what I do, but in order to do that, I need to take time by myself to be the best I can be. And I find that, and that was a really powerful quote that I found that that resonates with me. I love my
Mm.
family. I love my
Yeah.
friends. I love doing stuff, but I also love my own time. And I love
Mm.
the time where I just sit there and just be me in my own head and do whatever I want to do. And it's like that's maintenance in itself. Like you say, it's important to do that. I often use the analogy of on an aeroplane
Yeah.
when the emergency oxygen comes down, they always say put it on yourself before you put it on the kid.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what I have to do with my day, with my life. Just make sure that I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
Then we can do this,
Yeah.
And it's a little bit selfish, and there's people out there probably rolling their eyes at it. But the reality is that's what I have to do to stay
Yeah.
to stay a normal person.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody's got their own coping mechanisms. Like you were saying before, your mate can't stand cold showers, but it really works for you.
Oh,
Um,
it's mega for me.
and you going for walks and doing exercises. Where I interviewed a woman from Network Rail the other day, and she can't stand doing that type of thing. She'll go and do something else, or she'll knit. She does a lot of knitting. Do you know what I love doing at work? And this is stupid, right? So we can be having the most stressful day at work. I'll go and sweep up because it focuses. I can do a task without having to use my brain, and it gives me that time to press the pause button and let everything reset in my head, and then I can go back and make the decision. It's like if you were constantly lifting dumbbells all the time, your arms, your muscles would start to fill with lactic acid, and it's just the same with your brain. You need to take a pause for yourself. So I'll go and sweep the floors, or go and load a scaffolding, or do something that I don't have to think about when I'm doing it. It just gives me that time to rest.
It's almost like a meditation, if you
Yeah,
like just
yeah,
taking yourself out of yourself. Take 5 minutes to just be automatic, and just let something else take over for a bit.
yeah, absolutely.
I think that's really really important, and quite a good bit of advice there actually. Just like take yourself out of yourself for a bit and let your unconscious take over, if you like.
Yeah, it's like I used to do a lot of cycling, and I don't get. I say I don't get time. I don't make time for it, which I should do really. But my favourite part of the cycling wasn't going out. I love riding bikes. I've ridden cycle bikes all my life from being a kid all the way through. But I'll go out and do maybe, or at the time, 70, 80 mile ride. And I live in the Peak District, so it's hilly. So I come back, and I really like, I'll have had a shower, I'll have had something to eat, and I'll be just sat, and all my muscles are just repairing themselves. And you get that sense of euphoria rushing through your body. And that's what I used to love about a lot of it. And I guess that goes back to, like you say, about the cold showers, I think.
So what's next for the Mind Your Head podcast?
Next, we've got, well, obviously, as you know, it's trying to work things around COVID and making sure that we can do it. I think we're going to carry on releasing 1 to 2 podcasts a month, because Tom, who does it with me, he works full time as well. He has his own radio show as well, which he does. So it's difficult trying to make everybody's diary work, and it's difficult trying to get into COVID safe spaces at the minute. But
Yeah,
we're going to carry on with that. Like I say, I'm starting to do quite a lot of work with charities now, and I do a lot of community engagement stuff as well, which I really enjoy. So when we're doing the big projects, a lot of people hate building sites, don't they? You'll know that you always get
yeah.
grief off people when you walk off site. You're
I
making so
hate
much
them
noise,
myself.
and I do a lot with the community, so we give back a lot. Whether that might be recently over Christmas, we did a lot of food packages and things for people. I'm going to go off and do some stuff with my Manchester Mind to have an allotment where they do treatment for people there, and I'm going to go over there and see if they need any sheds building or anything moving around, or they might need the use of that, because we've got a fleet of about 40 plus vans at work. If they need anything moving with the vans, I can borrow the vans or just help out in some way like that. And I get so much satisfaction out of that than
It,
going and
again,
doing these big jobs.
that's taking you out of yourself. Doing stuff for others is another form of taking yourself out of yourself, not thinking about you as a center of the universe. Um,
Yeah.
I'm a real big believer that mentality, when you get sucked into thinking you're the center of the universe, is quite destructive, and
Mm.
quite it is a massive trigger for a lot of people falling into mental health cycles. And by doing stuff, reaching out like you're doing, trying to do these good things, is a real game changer. And I'm sure it makes you feel a lot more satisfied with life.
Yeah, I mean, I say to people now that I'm at a pivotal point in my career, really, that I've worked on. I've been fortunate to be parts of teams that are delivering really big packages, multi-million-pound packages. The company that I work for is growing at a really rapid rate lately, and I'm over it. If I'm honest with you, Sam, I've done all that side of things, and I want to do something else. I don't get any job satisfaction out of it. I don't get any job satisfaction out of delivering these big packages, and I just do it because it's work. And I've said this to my boss. I've been open and honest with him. And whereas if I go and help, like these community incentives that we do, I get more satisfaction out of doing that than I do out of anything that we've done at work. Like we did a job in Colwyn Bay a few years ago, and even then, that was probably when I was at my lowest point. It was an anniversary of the Second World War, and they had a procession that went through Colwyn Bay, and I got our lads there. I said to them, right, we'll come in, we'll marshal the streets, or I can give you a couple of lads that'll come down and we'll marshal the streets and make sure that nobody runs out on the road or whatever they might need. And I got more out of doing that for that one day than I did delivering the package for him on that particular site.
I know exactly what you mean and can relate to that, because actually I get a lot more out of doing podcasts. I love it. I love talking to people. I love having a conversation, and I like producing the content. I like doing all the artwork, everything to do with it. I love it, and I'm desperately searching to turn it into a scalable business where, you know, I could do something I loved. Rather, like, I do enjoy being a spark. I'll never fully give it up if I don't need to. You know, my ultimate goal, and this is another thing we should talk about as well, is goals. Setting yourself goals, achievable goals, and actually having dreams as well, like, and not being scared not to meet them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people get really down if they don't, like, oh, I want 100,000 followers by this time. Well, if you don't meet it, it's not the end of the world. Just try harder
No.
to get your next quota. There's a lot of these things, and these conversations are valuable to these people out there. And I think you're doing a great job. I really feel like
Thank you.
you're giving a lot back, by doing what you're doing. What I would say is, do more episodes, bro.
I know. We probably will get support. I mean, we've got guests booked now between now. Or sorry, if I didn't book any more guests, I've got enough content now to deliver between now and January next year.
Lovely,
So,
lovely.
so it's really, really good, and it can only get better. Just off the few episodes that we've done now, we're getting some really good feedback and really good buy-in off people. I've got some bricklayers coming up that are going to talk on it. I've got a digger driver. He's going to come on and talk about it. I've got a couple of CEOs. I've got CEO of Lighthouse Club going to come on. They're a great charity. They do a lot. They they sorted out all the funding for me to go off and do my mental health first aid training, and then go off and do my mental health first aid instructor, so I can now deliver mental health first aid at work to people. Well, I've got to do 2 co-deliveries, but because of COVID lockdown or COVID restrictions, they're not doing face-to-face training at the minute. So
COVID's been rough for sure. It's stifled a lot of growth in a lot of different things. But listen, man, well done to you. Well done to your podcast. I hope people go over. And where do they find your podcast, first of all?
you can get us anywhere you get your podcast from. So we're on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, and pretty much anywhere else. We're not on we've got a YouTube channel, but I put no content up there. So I'm gonna have to start looking at that and changing that up.
Definitely, you'll double your downloads instantly with YouTube.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, listen, it's been a great pleasure chatting to you tonight. Yeah, well done, mate. Thank you very much for your podcast, and thank you very much for coming in on Fat Sam Show.
Thank you for having me. You keep going with everything. You keep pushing that message out there because you're doing a great job.
Cheers, dude. Fat
Thank
Sam
you.
Podcast, we are out.